Admiral Zextal stood motionless before the vast observation window of the Nexian Empire's flagship, the Eternal Dawn. Their 6 eyes reflected the glowing holographic displays that filled the command chamber, each screen showing different aspects of a seemingly insignificant planet called Earth. After 3 centuries of military service, few things could surprise the Admiral anymore. This primitive world, however, had managed exactly that. The massive warship hung in the shadow of Jupiter, its advanced cloaking systems rendering it invisible to Earth's primitive detection systems. Or at least, that's what the Empire's technical specialists had assured. Yet somehow, the humans had managed to detect their presence twice in the past month alone. The incident reports sat heavily in Zextal's memory, each one a warning sign that something about this species defied conventional assessment. "Admiral, the latest reconnaissance data has been compiled," announced Sub-Commander Vrel, their crystalline form shimmering as they approached with a data crystal. "The humans have advanced their quantum computing capabilities by another 12% since our last observation. 3 weeks ago." Zextal's upper eyes narrowed while their lower set continued scanning the tactical displays. "Show me." The holographic displays shifted, showing a cascade of technological advancement curves that made no logical sense. Humanity's progress didn't follow the standard developmental patterns the Empire had documented across thousands of species. Where other civilizations developed in predictable, measured steps, humanity's advancement looked more like an explosion, with multiple fields of science and technology progressing simultaneously in seemingly random directions. "Their pattern recognition capabilities exceed our initial estimates," Vrel continued, their crystalline surface clouding with concern. "They've begun to reverse engineer components from the scout ship we lost in their asteroid belt." The lost scout ship had been another anomaly. Its captain, a decorated veteran of the Empire's expansion forces, had reported everything normal until the final transmission. Somehow, a primitive mining vessel had managed to disable a warship that should have been centuries beyond their ability to detect, let alone engage. The Empire had written it off as a mechanical failure until they detected human quantum signatures in the wreckage. "Play the recovered transmissions," Zextal ordered, all 6 eyes now focused on the main display. The screen filled with footage from the scout ship's final moments. The human mining vessel, little more than a collection of crude metal plates and chemical thrusters, had appeared to be tumbling out of control. The scout ship's captain, following standard protocol, had moved to intercept, presumably to eliminate witnesses to their presence. That's when everything went wrong. The tumbling had been a ruse. The moment the scout ship came within range, the mining vessel had sprayed a cloud of seemingly random debris. Hidden within that cloud were thousands of tiny automated drones, each carrying a primitive but effective electromagnetic pulse device. Individually, they posed no threat to the scout ship's shields. Together, firing in a synchronized pattern that somehow predicted and matched the scout ship's shield harmonics, they had temporarily created a window in the defensive screen. That window had lasted less than 2 seconds. The humans had needed less than 1. A precisely targeted kinetic round, accelerated to relativistic speeds by what appeared to be a makeshift mass driver constructed from mining equipment, had torn through the scout ship's command center. The humans had known exactly where to hit, despite never having encountered their technology before. More importantly, they had anticipated the scout ship's defensive protocols and planned their attack accordingly. "Have we determined how they predicted the shield harmonics?" Zextal asked, already suspecting the answer. Vrel's crystalline form dimmed slightly, a sign of discomfort. "They guessed, Admiral. Based on the recovered communications, they ran simulations using gaming computers, of all things. They tried thousands of possible combinations simultaneously, using something they call parallel processing. It's inefficient, inelegant, and should not have worked. But it did work," Zextal finished. "Just like their orbital defense grid should not work, yet somehow maintains coverage with barely a tenth of the satellites we calculated as necessary. Just like their primitive projectile weapons should not be able to match our plasma cannons in effectiveness, yet consistently achieve comparable results through sheer volume of fire and predictive targeting. The Admiral moved closer to the observation window, watching distant Earth rotate slowly against the star-filled backdrop. The planet itself was unremarkable, a blue-white marble swirled with clouds and topped with polar ice caps. Its inhabitants, however, were proving to be anything but unremarkable. "Show me the population centers," Zextal commanded. The display shifted, highlighting Earth's major cities. The patterns of development defied all logical urban planning models. Humans built everywhere, in deserts, on fault lines, in flood plains, and even on the slopes of active volcanoes. When natural disasters struck, as they frequently did, the humans simply rebuilt, often incorporating new defenses against whatever had destroyed the previous construction. Their resilience exceeds all predicted parameters, Vrel noted, displaying charts of human recovery rates from various catastrophes. They lose thousands to a disaster and respond by improving their infrastructure. They face a pandemic and emerge with advanced medical technology. Even their conflicts with each other drive innovation at rates our models cannot explain. Zextal's upper eyes closed in contemplation while their lower set studied the casualty projections for a potential invasion. The numbers were troubling, not because they were high, the Empire had certainly suffered worse in its campaigns of expansion, but because of their uncertainty. The projection models showed the widest probability spread the Admiral had ever seen, ranging from total victory within days to scenarios the computers marked as catastrophic uncertainty. "What do you make of their entertainment media, Sub-Commander?" The question caught Vrel off guard, their crystalline form briefly flickering with confusion. "Admiral? Their stories, their games, their simulations. What patterns have you observed?" Understanding dawned in Vrel's posture. They seem obsessed with scenarios of resistance against superior forces, Admiral. Many of their most popular entertainment programs involve hypothetical conflicts with technologically advanced invaders. They appear to derive pleasure from imagining themselves as underdogs who prevail through unconventional tactics. And how many of these scenarios have they staged? How many times have they practiced defending against exactly the kind of invasion we're contemplating? Millions, Admiral. Their gaming networks process billions of combat simulations daily. They call it entertainment, but effectively, they've been wargaming every possible variation of invasion scenarios for generations. Zextal's lower eyes tracked a flight of primitive human aircraft conducting exercises over their Pacific Ocean. The machines were inefficient, using crude chemical propulsion and requiring regular refueling. Yet somehow, these limitations had driven the humans to develop mid-air refueling capabilities that, while primitive, were more flexible and battle-resistant than the Empire's own automated energy transfer systems. "They are preparing," Zextal stated flatly. "Not because they know we're here, but because they assume something like us exists. They look at the stars and don't just see natural phenomena to be studied, they see potential threats to be defended against. And they have been preparing for us, imaginatively and practically, since before they achieved powered flight." Vrel processed this statement, their crystalline surface rippling with calculations. "Admiral, are you suggesting we delay the invasion?" "The High Command expects. The High Command expects a simple subjugation of a pre-spacefaring civilization," Zextal interrupted. "What they do not realize is that we are not facing a pre-spacefaring civilization. We are facing a civilization that has spent its entire history preparing for this moment, even before they knew it would come. They have made an art form of studying how to defeat superior forces. They have turned their own limitations into advantages we cannot easily counter." The Admiral turned all 6 eyes to Vrel. "Prepare a priority communication to High Command. I will not have my name attached to what could become the greatest military catastrophe in Imperial history. The humans are not ready for integration into the Empire is not ready for integration with humanity." 3 months after Admiral Zextal's initial warning, the Eternal Dawn's command center had transformed into a surveillance hub unlike any in the Empire's history. Hundreds of holographic displays tracked everything from Earth's media broadcasts to their power grid fluctuations. The Admiral stood at the center of this electronic storm, all 6 eyes tracking different data streams simultaneously, searching for patterns that might explain the growing unease in their gut. "The High Command has rejected your recommendation, Admiral," Vrel announced, entering the command center with an official transmission crystal. "They believe your assessment shows excessive caution. The invasion will proceed as scheduled." Zextal's upper eyes closed in resignation while their lower set continued monitoring the displays. "Show me the latest simulation results." The main screen filled with combat projections, each one more concerning than the last. The humans had discovered another Imperial probe 2 days ago. Instead of destroying it, they had done something far more troubling. They had sent it back, completely intact, with a message written in perfect Imperial standard: "We should talk." "They've broken our encryption," Vrel stated, their crystalline form clouded with disbelief. "Not just the basic protocols, they've deciphered our entire language database. They're using our own classified military codes to communicate with us." "How long did it take them?" "That's the concerning part, Admiral. Based on recovered data, they accomplished it in approximately 72 hours. They threw their entire global network of gaming computers at the problem, repurposing something called blockchain technology to create a distributed decryption system. Millions of their civilians participated, thinking they were playing a new online game." Zextal moved to a display showing human internet traffic patterns. "Show me their response to the probe's discovery." The screen filled with countless social media posts, news articles, and video streams. Humans across their planet were discussing the possibility of alien life, not with fear, but with an almost eager anticipation. They weren't just accepting the idea of advanced alien civilizations, they were actively preparing for contact. "Their military preparations?" the Admiral inquired. "Accelerating beyond all projected curves," Vrel reported. "They've begun converting their entertainment simulation networks into global defense coordination systems. Their gaming servers are being repurposed into quantum computing nodes. They're adapting faster than our models can track." A new alert flashed across the main screen. Another Imperial scout ship had gone dark, this time in high orbit over what humans called the South Pacific. The loss of a single scout ship was an anomaly. The loss of 2 suggested a pattern. "Play the final transmission," Zextal ordered. The screen showed a human vessel, officially registered as a weather research platform. As the scout ship approached, the research vessel had appeared to suffer a catastrophic reactor failure. The Imperial ship, following standard protocol, had moved to investigate the potential radiation leak. That's when the trap was sprung. The reactor failure had been a controlled antimatter burst, precisely calculated to interfere with the scout ship sensors for exactly 1.3 seconds. In that brief window, 5 submarines, vehicles the Empire had dismissed as primitive underwater transport, had surfaced and launched what appeared to be modified communication satellites. The satellites had contained no weapons, no explosives, and no electronic warfare systems. Instead, they had created a precise geometric pattern around the scout ship, each one broadcasting a simple mathematical sequence. Together, they had established a resonance field that perfectly matched the scout ship's drive frequency. The Imperial vessel's own engine had torn it apart from within. "They weaponized math," Vrel observed, their crystalline surface rippling with something close to admiration. "They couldn't match our technology, so they turned our own physical principles against us. More importantly," Zextal added, "they demonstrated coordination between multiple military branches, civilian research vessels, and computational systems that should be incompatible with each other. Their ability to improvise and adapt defies all strategic doctrine." A new series of alerts drew their attention. Across Earth, humans were beginning to establish what they called open-source defense networks. Civilian scientists were freely sharing research data. Private companies were releasing military patents into the public domain. Amateur astronomers were coordinating their observations to track objects in orbit. They're unifying, Vrel noted. Not under any central authority, but through a kind of emergent cooperation we've never seen before. Their social media networks are becoming early warning systems. Their online gaming communities are turning into military training programs. Zextal's upper eyes narrowed as they studied the patterns. They're not just preparing for invasion, they're restructuring their entire civilization to resist us, and they're doing it without losing the chaos and creativity that makes them so unpredictable. The Admiral moved to a different display, showing human military deployments. Their surface ships, aircraft, and ground forces were repositioning in ways that made no tactical sense according to Imperial doctrine. Yet every time the Empire's computers ran simulations of potential engagement scenarios, these seemingly random deployments proved devastatingly effective. They're using our own surveillance against us, Zextal realized. Every probe we send, every scan we make, gives them more data about our capabilities. They're learning faster than we can gather intelligence. A final alert drew everyone's attention to the main screen. The humans had launched what appeared to be a cultural broadcast, aimed directly at the Eternal Dawn's position. The message was simple but profound: we know you're watching. We know you're considering invasion. We want peace, but we've spent our entire history imagining how to fight enemies exactly like you. This is your final chance to choose diplomacy. The message was followed by detailed technical specifications of every Imperial probe and scout ship the humans had encountered, along with proposed improvements to their designs. They weren't just showing that they could fight, they were demonstrating that they could innovate and advance even the Empire's technology. Prepare another priority transmission to High Command, Zextal ordered. Tell them. The Admiral paused, watching as humans across Earth continued their preparations, not in panic or desperation, but with a kind of determined enthusiasm that bordered on excitement. Tell them that if we proceed with this invasion, we won't just be fighting a primitive species. We'll be fighting an entire civilization that has spent generations preparing for this exact moment, and they appear to be looking forward to the challenge. The Eternal Dawn's tactical room had become unusually crowded. Admiral Zextal stood before a three-dimensional star map, surrounded by holographic representations of various alien species ambassadors. Each one represented a civilization that had, until recently, lived under the Empire's heel. Now they were gathering, drawn by whispers of something unprecedented: hope. The humans call it the Underground Railroad, reported Vrel, their crystalline form gleaming with barely contained excitement. They're helping oppressed species escape Imperial control, but that's not the remarkable part. They're teaching them how to fight back. The star map highlighted a series of seemingly random transport routes across the galaxy. To Imperial analysts, they appeared chaotic, inefficient. But Zextal had learned to spot the hidden patterns in human chaos. These routes weren't just escape paths, they were the framework of a resistance network. Show me the Centaurian situation, the Admiral commanded. The display shifted to a recent battle recording. The Centaurians, a species of methane-breathing crystalline beings, had been under Imperial control for 3 centuries. Their rebellion had lasted less than an hour, most did. But this time was different. Human-designed stealth ships, built in secret using modified mining equipment, had appeared from within the Centaurian crystal forests. They were crude by Imperial standards, but they incorporated something new, hybrid technology that combined Centaurian crystalline computing with human unpredictability. They're not just giving them weapons, Zextal observed. They're teaching them to innovate. To improvise. To think like humans while fighting with their own unique strengths. The recording showed Centaurian warriors, traditionally rigid in their tactics, executing what humans called guerrilla warfare. They used their natural crystalline properties to bend light around them, a ability the Empire had always dismissed as decorative. Combined with human tactical doctrine, it became a devastating advantage. The Empire lost 3 garrison battalions in that engagement, Vrel noted. The Centaurians suffered minimal casualties and disappeared back into their crystal forests. They're still transmitting Imperial surrender demands every hour, on all frequencies. Another alert drew their attention. The Aquarians, an aquatic species long subjugated for their underwater mining capabilities, had begun their own uprising. Their tactics showed clear human influence. They were using their natural sonar abilities in ways the Empire had never anticipated, coordinating massive underwater strikes against Imperial infrastructure. How many species have made contact with Earth? Zextal asked, already dreading the answer. 27 confirmed, Admiral. But that's not the concerning part. Vrel projected a new series of data streams. The humans aren't just teaching them to fight, they're learning from them. Each alliance brings new technological and tactical innovations. They're creating a collaborative resistance network that grows stronger with each new member. The main display showed a human diplomatic gathering. Representatives from dozens of species, each with their own unique biological and technological capabilities, sat together in what humans called the Coalition for Galactic Democracy. The name itself was a direct challenge to imperial authority. Their diplomatic approach defies all historical precedent, Vrel continued. Instead of demanding leadership or imposing their methods, they're encouraging each species to adapt human tactics to their own unique abilities. They call it parallel evolution of resistance. Zextal watched as the display showed various examples of this evolution. The arachnids, typically solitary hunters, had learned human squad tactics while teaching humans how to create organic technology. The ethereals, energy beings the Empire had used for power generation, were now combining their natural abilities with human electronic warfare techniques. They're not just building an army, the Admiral realized. They're creating an entirely new way of waging war. Each species maintains its independence while contributing to a collective defense network that becomes more unpredictable with each new addition. A new transmission caught their attention. The humans had begun broadcasting what they called open-source warfare tutorials across the galaxy. They were freely sharing not just tactical knowledge, but also cultural insights, scientific discoveries, and technological innovations. They're transforming our greatest weapon against us, Vrel observed. The Empire maintained control by keeping subjugated species isolated, dependent, and technologically stagnant. The humans are teaching them not just to resist, but to innovate and cooperate. The tactical display updated with fresh intelligence. Across the galaxy, former Imperial subjects were beginning to exhibit human-like adaptability. Species that had been compliant for generations were suddenly developing new technologies, forming unprecedented alliances, and showing a disturbing willingness to challenge imperial authority. "Show me the projection models," Zextal ordered. The numbers were staggering. Each successful rebellion inspired 3 more. Each innovative tactical combination sparked dozens of variations. The Empire's traditional advantage, its ability to predict and counter enemy strategies, was becoming meaningless against an ever-evolving network of resistance movements. "The humans have a saying," Vrel added, their crystalline form pulsing with what might have been amusement. "Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime." They're not just arming these species, they're teaching them to arm themselves. Zextal's upper eyes closed in deep thought while their lower set continued tracking the spreading rebellion. They've turned the entire concept of resistance into an open-source project. Each victory, each innovation, each tactical success becomes part of a shared knowledge base that grows exponentially. A final alert demanded their attention. The humans had begun construction on what they called embassy stations, massive space habitats designed to host representatives from any species seeking alliance. These weren't just diplomatic posts, they were innovation hubs where different species could collaborate, share knowledge, and develop new ways to fight imperial oppression. "Send a final warning to High Command," Zextal ordered. "Tell them that if we don't change our approach immediately, we won't just be fighting humans, we'll be fighting every species we've ever oppressed, armed with human ingenuity and burning with a very human desire for freedom. The Eternal Dawn's command center had fallen silent. Admiral Zextal stood motionless, all 6 eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the aftermath of what humans had dubbed Operation Avalanche. The Empire's most fortified command base in the Orion sector had just fallen, not to overwhelming force, but to something far more terrifying, human creativity combined with alien cooperation. "Play it again," Zextal ordered, their voice unusually quiet. "Show me how they did it." The holographic display rewound to the beginning of the attack. What had seemed at first like a crude frontal assault by human warships had been merely the first layer of an intricately choreographed dance of deception and coordination. "They used every species' unique abilities in ways we never imagined possible," Vrel reported, their crystalline form flickering with a mixture of fear and admiration. "The ethereals, whom we'd always used as living power sources, phased through our shields to plant quantum disruptors. The Centaurians used their crystalline properties to redirect our sensor scans, creating perfect blind spots. The recording showed waves of smaller ships, each crewed by mixed species teams, executing maneuvers that should have been impossible given their technological limitations. But they weren't relying on technology alone, they were combining natural abilities in ways Imperial tactical doctrine had never considered. The humans call it emergent warfare," Vrel continued. "Each species' limitations become another's strength. When our ships adapted to one form of attack, they seamlessly shifted to another, like they were improvising music rather than fighting a battle." The display showed arachnid ships weaving organic webs in space, not as weapons, but as vast communication networks that were completely invisible to Imperial sensors. Aquarian vessels released clouds of living organisms that appeared as natural space debris but served as distributed intelligence gathering systems. "Their greatest innovation wasn't technological," Zextal observed, upper eyes narrowing in realization. "It was social. They created a command structure that doesn't need central coordination. Each unit operates independently but instinctively supports the others." The tactical replay reached its crescendo. As Imperial forces focused on the visible threats, human mining ships modified with Centaurian crystal tech had emerged from hiding spots in the base's own debris field. They weren't carrying weapons, they were carrying something far more dangerous: ideas. "The infiltration teams," Vrel explained, "they didn't just attack our troops. They talked to them. Species we've subjugated for generations, serving in our own military, suddenly hearing messages of freedom and cooperation in their native languages. Messages crafted with perfect cultural understanding, touching on hopes and fears we didn't even know they had." The results had been devastating. 30% of the Imperial garrison had switched sides mid-battle. Another 40% had simply stood down, refusing to fire on their former victims. The impregnable command base had fallen not to superior firepower, but to something the Empire had never trained its forces to resist: hope. "Show me the current tactical situation," Zextal commanded. The star map expanded, revealing a galaxy in transformation. The Empire's neat, orderly pattern of control was dissolving into a dynamic network of independent but cooperating species. Former Imperial subjects were not just claiming their freedom, they were forming new kinds of alliances, based not on domination but on mutual benefit. "The humans have a term for this," Vrel said. "They call it cascading liberation. Each successful rebellion provides resources and knowledge for the next. They've turned our own empire into a weapon against us. The more worlds we controlled, the more allies they can recruit." A new alert drew their attention. The humans had broadcast their latest innovation across all frequencies, plans for what they called liberation kits. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense, but rather collections of tools, tactics, and technologies that any oppressed species could adapt to their own needs. "They're not trying to destroy the Empire," Zextal realized, all 6 eyes widening. "They're trying to transform it. Each world we lose doesn't just become their ally, it becomes a teacher for others seeking freedom. The display showed examples of this transformation. Former imperial manufacturing centers were being converted into innovation hubs where different species freely shared knowledge and resources. Patrol routes designed to maintain imperial control were becoming trade routes fostering cultural exchange and technological cooperation. The High Command still doesn't understand, Vrel noted, their crystalline form dimming with concern. They keep ordering conventional military responses to an unconventional threat. They're fighting the last war while the humans and their allies are inventing a new way of conflict. Zextal moved to a different display, showing the latest psychological analysis of human behavior. They're not just winning battles, they're winning hearts and minds. Every act of cooperation, every successful rebellion, every instance of species helping each other proves their core message, that diversity is strength, that cooperation is more powerful than control. A final transmission caught their attention. The humans and their allies had begun construction on something they called the Galactic Commons, a vast network of interconnected habitats, research stations, and cultural centers. It wasn't a military installation or a seat of government, but rather a physical manifestation of their philosophy, a place where all species could meet as equals, share knowledge, and work together. Send an emergency transmission to High Command, Zextal ordered, their voice heavy with the weight of certainty. Tell them we're not facing a military threat we can defeat through force. We're facing an idea that grows stronger with every attempt to suppress it. The humans haven't just learned how to fight us, they've learned how to make our own tactics obsolete. Admiral Zextal stood before the Imperial High Command, a position that would once have been the pinnacle of their career. Now, it felt more like standing at the edge of an abyss. The vast chamber, designed to intimidate with its towering crystalline arches and hovering displays of imperial might, seemed suddenly fragile. Your final report, Admiral, the High Commander's voice boomed across the chamber. Explain how we lost control of half our territory in less than a standard year. We didn't lose control, Zextal responded, all six eyes steady. We lost understanding. The humans didn't just defeat our forces, they rendered our entire concept of control obsolete. The tactical display activated, showing the transformed galaxy. Where imperial control had once been marked in rigid, geometric patterns of dominance, now organic networks of cooperation flowed between stars. Former imperial worlds hadn't just broken free, they had created something entirely new. They called it the Constellation Protocol, Vrel explained from their position beside the Admiral. Every liberated world becomes a node in a network of mutual support. No central authority, no rigid hierarchy, just countless species working together in ways we never imagined possible. The display showed examples of this transformation. Former imperial mining worlds had become innovation centers where dozens of species collaborated on new technologies. Military outposts had been converted into cultural exchange hubs. Even the Empire's vast communication network, designed for control and surveillance, had been repurposed into what humans called the Galactic Internet, a free exchange of ideas, art, and knowledge. This is their true weapon, Zextal continued. Not their ships, not their tactics, but their ability to imagine and create new ways of existence. They didn't just resist our control, they offered a better alternative. The main screen showed footage from various liberated worlds. Species that had been enemies under imperial rule were now working together, combining their unique abilities in ways that produced exponential progress. The Ethereal's energy manipulation complemented Centaurian crystal technology. Arachnid biological engineering merged with human digital systems. The humans have a concept they call emergence, Vrel added. The idea that simple parts, working together, can create something greater than their sum. They applied this not just to technology, but to civilization itself. A new alert drew everyone's attention. The latest reports showed imperial worlds voluntarily joining what was now called the Galactic Cooperative. They weren't being conquered or liberated, they were choosing to leave, attracted by the promise of freedom and genuine cooperation. Our own citizens are defecting, one of the High Command members noted, their voice thick with disbelief. Not just the subjugated species, but our own people. Why? Zextal moved to a different display, showing cultural transmission data. Because the humans and their allies aren't offering conquest or submission. They're offering purpose. Connection. The chance to be part of something greater than control and dominance. The display showed examples of this cultural transformation. Imperial citizens, raised on principles of order and hierarchy, were discovering the joy of creativity and collaboration. Young Imperials were particularly drawn to human concepts like open-source development and collective innovation. They've achieved something we never thought possible, Zextal continued. They've made freedom more efficient than control. Their network of independent but cooperating worlds innovates faster, adapts better, and produces more than our centralized empire ever could. The statistical displays confirmed this assessment. Worlds that joined the cooperative showed dramatic increases in technological development, cultural output, and quality of life. The chaos that the empire had always feared would result from freedom had instead produced a dynamic stability, like a healthy ecosystem continuously adapting and evolving. And now, Vrel added, their crystalline form pulsing with what might have been amazement, they're offering us the same chance. The main screen displayed the latest transmission from Earth. It wasn't an ultimatum or a demand for surrender. Instead, it was an invitation to join the Galactic Cooperative as equals. The humans and their allies weren't seeking to destroy the Empire, they were offering to help transform it. This is their greatest victory, Zextal concluded. They've shown us that our fundamental assumption about the galaxy was wrong. Power doesn't come from control. It comes from cooperation. Strength isn't found in uniformity, but in diversity. Progress doesn't flow from order imposed from above, but from countless individuals and species freely working together. The High Command chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Empire faced a choice: continue fighting a war they now understood they couldn't win, or embrace a transformation they never imagined possible. The humans have a saying, Zextal added, all six eyes scanning the troubled faces of the High Command. The best way to predict the future is to create it. They've created a future we couldn't imagine, and now they're inviting us to help shape it. The question isn't whether our empire will fall, it's whether we're brave enough to help it evolve into something greater. As if to emphasize this point, the galactic display showed another imperial world peacefully joining the cooperative. The rigid lines of imperial control continued to dissolve, replaced by the organic, interconnected networks of free cooperation. It wasn't the end of civilization as they knew it, it was the beginning of something far more extraordinary. The empire that had sought to impose order on the galaxy was being offered the chance to become part of a greater order, one built not on control, but on the very chaos and creativity they had always feared. In their attempt to subjugate humanity, they had instead discovered something far more valuable, a new way of existing in the universe, where the very diversity they sought to suppress became the source of unlimited potential.